I don't know any way around that. Goodness, I must be in a mood this morning. I've been twisting tails all morning on the YouTube shorts. My favorite thing to do. Interesting question came up. I just put a video up on. Should a man, or should Projo, we got to distinguish between a normal, ordinary man and Projo, should Projo wear a wedding ring? Now, when I first got married, oh goodness, nothing but the best production right here. When I first got married, of course, I was a beta simp. I was raised to treat women, I was raised to be a simp like many of you, and didn't until very many years, until I stopped listening to the bad advice given to us by our boomer parents, and realized that the advice that they were giving us was actually hurting us rather than helping us. But wedding ring was definitely a boomer thing, right? Wedding rings and that whole thing. Look at the whole bridal industry that was flourishing when you grew up. You could go in to a mall and learn every kiss begins with K and all of this regular boomer nonsense, and that we should spend 2 months' salary on an engagement ring and all that boomer nonsense. Now I think we're starting to wake up to the fact that, you know what, maybe there's some things that we grew up with or some traditions that should be abandoned. So speaking to that, so back in the days when I was a beta simp, I used to wear a wedding ring as well and had a couple of close calls with shop incidents. I would say within 3 months of wearing that wedding ring, and I wore it every day when I was working in my shop, it was pretty much beyond recognition. It was bent. I'd straightened it up a couple times on the vise. It was dinged up. It was wearing thin on the bottom, and I finally just gave it to Mrs. W and said, I'm not having this. She was a little upset for a moment, but got over it. And I haven't worn one since. So I wore one for probably 6 months and realized it was not for me. Something that is happening now, and I think maybe has always happened, I don't know, but I've heard this a lot. You know, I've even had personal experience with this. Western women will hone in on this. Western women what it is, I think what it is, I can only speculate, who can get into their minds, right? But what I think it is that there's a real paradox with women and men in that a woman wants a man that's desirable, that other women would want. No woman wants a man that no other woman would want. You know, it makes you feel good if you were, if they like it or not, it makes them feel good to see that other women are paying attention to them because they know that they have someone that's of value, that's of quality, right? And with all of the difficulty going on with relationships and such, there is a lot of resentment towards women when they see others of their kind that have locked down a good man, that are having families and marriages, and they hate that. It is a very stark reminder to them of their failures in the dating market and of their unrealistic standards. And so one thing that they'll do, and I don't know if this is consciously or subconsciously, they will intentionally seek after and try to break up marriages, and they'll prey on men that are wearing rings. You know, one thing that it tells them, if you're wearing a wedding ring and another woman sees that, what that tells her in her subconscious is that this is a valuable person, at least to one woman. And if a man is valuable to one woman, then maybe he's valuable to her. And they will, many of them, especially these days, will go out of their way to try to disrupt that because they cannot stand to see another woman having something that they're not able to do or achieve themselves. And they will be vindictive that way. So it can put a target on your back if you're wearing one. Now again, these are just my opinions, beloved. And I do have to apologize up front. As a black and white person who sees things right or wrong, black and white, right? I come out here and I spew these things. So these are, and also, let's be honest, you know, some of these titles, some of these topics that we come up with, they're intentionally, my intention is to be controversial because, well, that's what gets people's attention. And when you're dealing on a platform where attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and we're going from longer form content into short content, that's the thing, and people are getting accustomed to it, you have to have something bold and big right up front to get people's attention, to get them to think. If you are just parroting the same old trash, the same old nonsense, the same old boring, tired ideas, the status quo, you know, how do you differentiate yourself, for one? And how do you wake people up to the problems in society? Number two. So shocking someone by starting out a video with, if you were born a bastard, that's a term that was commonly used back in the day. It was, I was going to say, maybe not necessarily derogatory, but I think there was a derogatory or negative connotation with it, because that definitely shows that a young man or a young woman is born into a situation that puts them at a great disadvantage. And it is a great disadvantage to be raised as a boy, to be raised by a single mother, by a woman. Women just don't do well, by and large, at raising boys. And if you doubt that, just ask any of the boys that didn't have a father in their life which they would have preferred. And it's hilarious to get in the comment and look at this, because you'll have two groups of people. You'll have women that are butthurt. You'll have beta simps that are butthurt, because they will want to come up and they will want to give an exception, or one time that they knew, or a rare exception of a woman that was, that went above and beyond. But I'm looking at the big picture here. If you're looking at the average and the numbers, well, it's not ideal, is it? And that's why we're in the situation that we're in right here. So to get people's attention, beloved, to wake people up, we're going to have to step out of the status quo. We're going to have to be a little bit shocking. And it's incredible to me that all it takes to be shocking is to just speak clearly and speak truth, biblical truth. Here's the truth. If you're born to a single mother and there's no man in your life, you're at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage, no question about it. And some beta will come in and say, well, it's better to be raised by a single mother than to have a violent or dangerous man in the house. Well, I don't know, I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is it's not ideal to be raised by a single mother. It's terrible. That's why, here's the problem with our fellow brothers in the African American community. And shout out to our brothers in the African American community. I don't envy the situation that they're in. Look at the percentage of homes that don't have a man in the house. They're very, very high, much higher than the majority of the other folks in the country. And they suffer because of that. When you think of the violence, or hear and know about the violence that takes place in the inner cities, a big reason for this is single mothers that have raised men. Now, single mothers, women, as we know, are particularly more emotional than men are. And when you are a woman and you're raising a boy, that's all he's ever seen. He's never seen what it looks like to have a man in the house that has the ability to control his emotion, to fly off the handle and just go crazy over small situations. You have a very dangerous combination. What you have is a man with the strength and the ability to do harm and damage of a strong, capable man, with the emotion of a woman that he's not able to control. And that's why when someone steps on their sneakers, they're not able to deal with that, and it oftentimes turns to violence, and that can turn to death. Because they never have been around a strong, stoic man to teach them to control their emotions, and they react immediately, like so many women do. That's the problem right there in a nutshell. And shout out to those guys. I mean, it's a rough situation. It's a really rough situation. It's a terrible situation to grow up in, and I feel for it. We have a super chat from Mr. Justin F. Shout out to you, Justin. Justin writes, take this money and by all means act accordingly and buy a hamburger or something. You know what, Projo, if he were to receive a $10 super chat, which would put a couple gallons of gas into his new dual sport moto, wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of get out and to learn and know your infrastructure, what's going around. There are some people that know exactly where all the 5G towers are in their specific area. Wouldn't be a bad idea to know these things, would it? So we will be acting accordingly. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. Mr. Bradley Castaneda, shout out to you. We have a super chat. He writes, do shorts make you ad revenue? Yes, in some small way. Not a lot. There's not a lot. Now, it's been a month or two since YouTube made the announcement that they were going to monetize shorts. Now, I've been paid for shorts for some time. It's a small percentage of the overall pie, but what it does do is it gives you a lot of access to audience. It gives you a lot of subscribers and a ton of views, and also that's what YouTube is promoting right now. I like to do long form content. You know, I enjoy doing shorts as well. It's a medium that I did not like at first. It was something that was completely brand new that no one's ever done before. When you take the vertical filming, you know, the vertical camera angle, and a very so that really constrains you. That's a difficult camera angle to work with, especially when you're trying to share information or a picture of what you're doing, because it's so cramped. It's hard to deal with and hard to work with. So that's one thing that I didn't like at first. I'm going to get to your question. Number two is you're extremely limited by, you have a time restraint, 60 seconds. In the past, I've had unlimited time to tell a particular story or to get a point across, show how to do something. I could make it anywhere from 8, 10, 25 minutes, and I've done so, even half hour. You didn't have any limits. Shorts are a whole different deal. But still, you need to get the information across. So to be able to show someone how to hang an axe handle in 20 minutes is very different than showing someone how to hang an axe handle in 60 seconds. So it had never been done before in the past. So this is all a new format. And I, like many people, was pushed into it by YouTube. We didn't have a choice. It was either, if you want to be relevant on this platform, if you want your channel to grow and to have new people coming in and to reach new folks, if you're not doing shorts, then your channel is going to be very difficult. Not impossible. Some guys are able to do it, but not everyone. They certainly are not going to be promoting it. So that's one. They forced us into this. Well, now that I've got into it and I've started to kind of figure out how to use it and how to do it, I actually kind of enjoy it. It's a fun challenge to try to get across in 60 seconds a point or explain something. Like today, you know, explain what type of ice you should buy, where you should get it, how you should mount it, the accessories that you should get for it, and you know, just some general basic information. How do you get all of that across in 60 seconds or less? Well, I'm learning how to do that, and people appreciate that. People's time is valuable, and if you can get the information or get something across, it's doable. It's doable. As far as making money from them, so for the last year or so, I would make maybe a couple $1,000s a month on shorts. It was coming from what they called a shorts fund. YouTube set aside some money. It was like $100 million, whatever it was. It was a big pool of money that was equally divided out to creators that produce shorts according to their views. And so that would fluctuate and go up and down, and you know, according to however many eyeballs I got in front of those videos. Well, when that shorts fund ran out, they made an announcement, and this was maybe last month or 2 months ago, maybe 3, time goes by so quick, that they were going to now be monetizing and paying for shorts. And so yes, they do. It's not a lot. You know, I'm guessing a video that does 100,000 views, a short that does 100,000 views is going to make you, I don't know, $7, $10 in a month. You know, it's not a lot. But what it does give you is a ton of views, you know. So what I'm doing, if I'm actively doing shorts, like dropping a couple shorts a day, my channel will do anywhere from 1,500 to 4,000 views a minute, all day long while those shorts are being viewed. They get tremendous amount of views, up in the millions of views. And then I also upload on TikTok. You know, I've grown my TikTok channel completely organically. I put that up less than a year, I guess maybe a year ago or so, maybe less than a year ago. And that's coming up on, what, 700,000 followers now. And I haven't cross-promoted with my other ones. What I wanted to do with a TikTok channel was to use that as a barometer to see, am I getting equal play in YouTube or am I being shadow banned? So I can tell very easily, if I drop the same exact short within 5 minutes on TikTok or YouTube, and the TikTok video does 2 million in 48 hours, and the YouTube video does 40,000, well, you know, right? Because the audiences are not that different. The audiences on TikTok are a little bit younger. a little bit more surly, definitely from the Gen Zoomer, but it's a good place for content as well. Better in many ways than some of the others, in my opinion. Thank you, Bradley. Good question. We have a comment from our friend, the Battle Chemist, with an update here, I'm hoping. I tested the ring theory to see if women hit on me more with it on, and over a year, didn't see a difference, but my physical aesthetics aren't high. Yeah, it's hard to quantify. Guys have said this for years. My personal experience, I believe it. Would it change if you weren't wearing? I don't know. But the general consensus among Projo seems to be that it can be a liability. I believe that it is. We have a super chat from William Tallman, who writes, I am an alpha with an alpha son and daughter. Maybe, but in my experience, I've known a few alphas and know a few alphas. One thing different is I've never had an alpha tell me he was an alpha. So I'm not denying what you're saying, but it is a little bit sus. When you are in the presence of an alpha, I would not consider, it's hard to quantify this, and I don't know how important it is. It's just, when you meet one, you'll know it. There's just absolutely no question. My best friend, when I'd left the Christian cult that I grew up with I had a really good friend that was one of these rare, true alphas. And I enjoyed being around him. We had a good time because we had a lot of things in common, but the friendship was not able to be sustained because there was too much competition. Everything was about competition, about getting the girl, about the fastest motorcycle rider, about everything about that. The alphas need to dominate and need to be competitive, and I found that a very difficult environment to operate in, and we ultimately had to end our ways. That was one alpha I knew for sure. There was no question about it. Every man that would come in contact with him automatically became subservient to him. He was just a natural leader, just automatic. He never had to say he was an alpha, but he certainly was. I've worked with a couple, been around them, and it's just something that is just everyone knows instinctively. Men are drawn to it. They don't, it's a hard thing because you can be an alpha in one situation and not an alpha in another, depending on the crowd. I don't know where I would fall in this hierarchy. I am a solitary man. I do not I like my own company and always have. I've had my own businesses and I've typically worked by myself. I've had employees, but I prefer not to. I'd rather just be left alone. I like to ride my motorcycle by myself. I like to go to movies by myself. This was before I was married. I like to eat out by myself. I just prefer my own company until I want to be around someone. I'll have friends, but I want it to be on my terms. I don't want to just be around people all the time. I want to call the shots and I want to do what I want to do. So I never considered myself to be an alpha, more of an outlier or something else that just prefers his own company and does his own thing. But I don't easily become subservient to other men. In the presence of a true alpha, I don't have a problem with falling in line if he's a competent and good leader. If I trust him and have faith in him, I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. I don't have a problem with authority. But I cannot abide and I cannot be under the tutelage or the tyranny of a weak beta male or a weak fake alpha that is there because of family, nepotism, circumstance, or privilege. I can't abide that. I can't deal with it. And I had a lot of problem dealing in team environments with wildland firefighting, with the fire service, because of the fake alphas. The people that were there not because they deserved to be there, that weren't true leaders, but they're because of circumstances. That's the worst type of environment to be in. I absolutely detest it. I'll blow everything up to get myself out of it and to avoid it. But to be in the presence of a true alpha, a true leader that is respected, that I respect, I'll 100% fall in line and be a commander, a captain, whatever he needs. I will support him, to the gates of hell. But to meet that man, he's very, very rare, and you don't meet them very often. I can only think of just a handful, very small handful, probably fingers on one hand of the true alphas that I've met that would meet that criteria. But shout out to you, brother. Sorry, I'm backing up here. Shout out to you, William. Maybe you are an alpha. I don't know. But if you are, you don't need to say so. Mr. Dr. Prepper is in the house. Shout out to you, Dr. Prepper writes, keep an eye out for some fingers first aid in your mailbox. Goodness. I got accused of making that whole thing up and lying about cutting my finger. You know, when you see that, when you see someone, you know, it's not logical. I guess maybe it is. Maybe it's because there's so much fraud and there's so much fakery online that people have just got gun shy. The default position is to assume that one, automatically, if someone is saying something or they're sharing a product online, they're either grifting or they're lying. And if you were to take that tact, it wouldn't be unreasonable, right, with the amount of things that's going on. I don't do that. It was a bad cut. It was one of the worst cuts I ever had. The knife opened up in my briefcase. It was sitting jackknife like this, point up. I jammed my hand in there to grab something, and it sliced me down to the bone from the tip. I got right on the tip, and it cut me right down on the pinky finger there, and I was bleeding out everywhere. So it was legit, and that's definitely what happened. But there was a lot of accusations about me making that up, that didn't happen. I assure you that it did happen. I'm still carrying the Band-Aid on here. It should have been stitched up. I just don't like doing stitches. I don't like doing stitches on other people, and I definitely don't like doing stitches on myself, especially when I don't have any local. So I just kept it tight, wrapped it up, kept it clean, and it'll be healed up in a week or so. But thank you, Dr. Prepper. That's going to be well needed in the shop. Man, I go to Band-Aids. Between me and the Sweet Loaf, we crack into the Boo Boo Kit at least once a week around here. We have a super chat from Mr. Lucas Jones. Shout out to you, Lucas. Lucas writes, thank you for the great content. Keep it up. Well, I appreciate that, Lucas. Thank you for being here and for supporting us. You're doing God's work over here. We really do appreciate that. And Joe C., goodness, still going through puberty here, I see. Joe C., we have a $19 super chat, and he's a member. Shout out to you, brother. That's very generous of you. I really appreciate that. Joe C. writes this. Have you continued any conversations regarding Projo radio frequencies? Sorry if this has already been discussed. Thank you. Yes, we have, and it's already done. Now, the 3 radio kit that we've been sharing on the last couple live streams, our friend Evan at Radio Made Easy has programmed 2 Projo frequencies into the radio kit that you'll be able to use, all of it, that will be common to all of our radios. So if you're an East Coast guy and you buy the Projo kit, or if you are West Coast, it doesn't make any difference. We will have those common frequencies. So if you have one of the kits and you come out here for one of our future events, Lord willing, we'll have 2 channels that will be that will be common to all the Projo radios. Yes, we do. Middlemen, if one of you would be so kind is to periodically drop the link, Evan's link for the 3 radio Projo kit, our first real major product drop that we've done. It's only going to be available through Memorial Day weekend. Now, we were going to limit it at 100 units. That was the original plan, and that was because Evan is a small business. He and his family are running this. Everything is being sourced, apart from the radios, by USA-made companies, and some of the things are even handmade. There are 7 different suppliers that need to come together to make these kits available to us. So when we talked about this, Mrs. W and I had a conversation with him. We said, look, let's be conservative. There's a lot of work that goes into this. Each radio kit is going to be programmed for your area, and that's all got to be done by Evan and his family. So I said, give me a number of what you think is comfortable to fulfill in a timely manner, which would mean to me, 4 to 6 weeks or so from the pre-order. And he came up with the number 100. Well, after he started filling orders and kind of getting into it, he thought, well, I think I can do a little bit more than that. Let's open it up. Let's not give a number. Let's just open it up and have a deadline, Memorial Day. So Memorial Day is going to be the deadline, and once that run is over, that kit with the very first original Projo patch, which will be on the Velcro on the front of the USA-made bag, that will never be available again. It's a one-time deal. If we do a second run, it'll be different. So just a heads up there. Don't miss out on that. It's a great kit. Thank you, Dr. Prepper. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Joe C. We also have a super chat from the Great Lakes man and Double Loctite member. Shout out to you, brother. Good to see the Great Lakes man here, who writes, after I started wearing a ring, random weird flirtation from women absolutely went up. There you have it. Several married friends say they've had the same experience. Yes, this is commonly understood. This is not even really something that we need to discuss. I think that that was my experience. That's been the experience of a lot of men. And there you have it. We have it from the horse's mouth. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Now, if you want that, I've even known guys that were, single chads that would wear fake wedding rings because they believed that it got them more attention, that they used it as game. So take that for what it's worth. Mr. Alt Motor B, shout out to you, brother, writes, I grew up without a dad. I absolutely agree. My stepdad wasn't any help besides paying for things. I'm 36. I do promise to have a respectful family. Yeah, and what Mr. All Motor B is writing about is I did a very controversial short this morning about that. And it's true. It's true. A stepdad, and bless the stepdads for stepping in. There's been a lot of stepdads that have changed children's lives for sure. But that is not something, beloved, that I would encourage you to get involved with. First off, we don't date single mothers. Single mother dating is, by real men, is looked down upon. Those of us who look at a man dating a single mother, whether this is true or not, I'm just telling you how men think. We look down upon that. Why? Because it's low-hanging fruit. Everyone knows that a woman with children is way more desperate and has way less options than one that's unattached. That is without a doubt, without a question. And we also know, as men, that you can most likely lock down or marry, we got a B in here, a woman that you would not normally be able to have access to because of you were taking advantage of her desperation. That's just a simple fact. That's just the way that it is. So you're already starting there. Number two, you don't have the authority as a stepdad with those children that you do with your own children. Maybe when they're younger, maybe, and this is a huge maybe, if the mother allows it, and that's not always the case and rarely the case, and you have and you are in a position where now you are like a cuck bird. Cuck bird is impregnated by what do they call them? I forget all the terms. I'm not the nature guy here, right? I don't know all these animals, but there is a bird where that term cuck comes from. There's a bird that is impregnated by more of an alpha bird, but then takes a beta bird that sticks around and raises the children. I mean, that's really where that term comes from. It's a very difficult and unenviable position to be in. Number three, the woman is going to put her children before you. You are never going to be the priority in her life. It's always going to be her children that were sired by the real father, by the biological. So that puts you at a disadvantage as well. Not to mention, if she's got animals or dogs, you might even be third in the pecking order. And I mean, who wants to do that? And so you're basically stepping into a situation where you're losing respect from your fellow men. You're looked upon as society as well, it's not the same, is it? And you also are at great risk that these women are predatory, that they're in a terrible situation. They wake up and they realize, oh, this is not very nice. This is very difficult trying to raise kids on my own. Now I've got to deal with health care. Now I got to do both roles. I've got to try to fulfill both roles myself, and I'm not doing a very good job of it, nor can I do a very good job at it because it's a job made for two. They will prey upon you. They will pretend to be something just to get you in, get you locked down, and then they'll leave you, divorce you, and now you're going to be out of the house and you're going to be paying for alimony and child support for the next 18 years, right? So it is so dangerous and so ill-advised to get involved with single mothers, not to mention that by doing this, by bailing them out, gentlemen, and that's what we do. As men, we're providers. We're the ones that make things happen and provide resources. By doing this, you're bailing them out. You are making it okay for them to go out, to be promiscuous, to get knocked up by a Chad they're never gonna lock down, because they know that they have a bailout plan. And the bailout plan is this, that if they can't get the guy that they want, they'll get the guy that will step in and become the stepfather. Now, this may sound heartless to you, and oh, you're so mean, and we need stepfathers and all this. I understand this, but if there were less of you that would step into this unenviable position, then there would be, the consequences would be greater for these women, and they would be less likely to do so much hoeing out in the streets. I mean, it's your fault as well. Goodness, I mean, are these things not understood? Thank you, Mr. All Motors. I appreciate that. The Battle Chemist has an update. I've been waiting for this update. The Battle Chemist took Projo's advice here and said, I did buy a 2015 CRF 250L. I'm sorry, I know you told me this. I just was wanting some more details. I sent some pictures in the chat with Overton, along with pictures. Can send some to him forward. Yeah, I'd like to see those. Still need to get in my first ride. Goodness, I've got 200 miles on Mrs. W's. You know how many miles she has on her bike? Zero, but she's out of town. I did not, here's the deal. She's not super confident with this. And I do not, one thing that we want to do with not only with our children, not only with everyone, adopt this policy in your life. You may be really good at something, shooting, dirt biking, whatever. You forget your roots sometimes. You forget what it's like to not know how to do something. And you just can assume, well, you know, because I understand it, because I'm a man and I'm confident with it, then everyone else is too. Not so. Go back to the roots, the origins when you were little, and remember how intimidated you were to throw your leg over that dirt bike the first time. How intimidated were you to pull the trigger on that 357 Magnum? You know, you can cause someone to have a bad experience that will taint their impression of the sport or the activity for the rest of their life. Ask any kid that was had a mean or had a bad person in their life that put a big Magnum in their hands like I did and thought it was funny. Thought it was really funny to put a 44 Magnum into a revolver into the hands of a 6 or 7 year old boy and then laugh at him when he when he was scared to death from the recoil of the thing. What type of a man would do something like that? What type of a man would do that to a woman or a child? So temper your enthusiasm, temper your understanding a little bit, and go back and keep things simple for people. Yes, I could have put Mrs. W on the bike with it not set up for her, with the seat too tall, with sketch tires, and yeah, would it have been fine? Maybe, but I'm not going to do that. I want her to be able to participate and to enjoy this like I do. Maybe not on the level that I do, but within reason. Give her every chance to succeed. Fit the bike for her. Make sure it's got safe tires. Make sure that she's going to have a good experience. Also, it's been cold. Don't take someone out where they're going to be freezing, you know, so I'm waiting for the right time. A nice day when the weather's right, the bike is set up for her, where there's not in any hurry. Introduce her to it properly so that she has a good experience. Sorry, guys. Backing up here. I lost my place. I'm struggling here. We're in struggle stream. Here we go. Battle Chemist. Shout out to you. Got it. Mr. Overton. We have a super chat from Mr. Overton. He writes, alphas are not individuals. If you have no legion, you are no alpha. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I would I would not consider myself to be an alpha. I have had to fulfill that role from time to time, but I have done it reluctantly. And only because there was no one competent in the group to make things happening. And if I didn't step up and do it, it wasn't going to happen. I've done that on the fire ground. I've done that on motorcycle rides, had to take over navigation, or just what are we doing? Because no one would take lead. No one would do anything, and it makes me crazy. I want a leader, and if in the absence of a leader, I will reluctantly become the leader, but it's not the role that I want to do. And you're right, alphas draw men unto themselves. They have orbiters. A true alpha will, the aura of dominance and authority is just, you can feel it. It's just, you know it immediately when you see it, is a draw to men. Men love strong, competent leadership and are attracted to that. And a true alpha will have a group of captains around him that will go to, that will, push through heaven's gate or hell's gates if he says to do so. They'll be very devout to him. There's no question. If you claim to be an alpha and you don't have a group of lieutenants around you, you're not, in my opinion, you're not a true alpha. There's very few of them. This is a word that's commonly thrown around these days because this is what every man wants to be. But there are almost none that are. Very, very few alphas will you meet, true alphas. Thank you, brother. Sure appreciate that. Oh, man, we're in struggle stream. We're in struggle stream. Here we go. Oh, we have a Rate My Projo. We haven't done with these for a while. Oh, man, I don't, this chat, I need to get back to my signal here. We have a comment from B. Oaktree. Hey, Cody, are you still doing the cold showers and breathing exercises? If so, are you still seeing benefits? Yes, yeah, do that in the morning. I do want to get down in the river. I'm just afraid. But yes, I do that every morning before we get started. William Cordell, we have a comment. William writes, was behind on live streams, but made my Projo radio kit this morning, but missed the 100 count by a day. Well, the 100 count, Evan has opened that back up. So if you reach out to Evan, and if you guys could please throw Evan's link up in here, let's help him out. He told me that he's going to accept orders beyond the 100. So you have not missed the boat. And when we discussed it, I said, let's go ahead and include the limited edition, first ever Projo Act Accordingly patch, morale patch. That's going to be on the front of the bag, and you can't get that anywhere else. And once it's gone, it's gone. That's me, a picture of me in my night vision. So that artwork was done by subscribers and is super cool. So I confirmed with Evan. I said, Evan, if people order beyond the 100, do they get the first Projo patch? And he said they do. We're going to honor that. So you do have until the end of Memorial Day. Evan said that he could fulfill the orders, and I trust that he will. We have a comment from Justice who writes, your thoughts about single fathers marrying a single mother. Now again, beloved, I've got to preface this. I'm speaking in generalities, averages. I'm not talking about exceptions. I'm not talking about individual, unique circumstances. I can't know all these things. Life is messy. Situations are complicated. I have to speak in general terms. Generally speaking, it's a bad idea. Projo does not get involved with single mothers. And whether or not you're a single dad or not doesn't make any difference whatsoever. It's not about you. Your happiness is not the most important thing in life. You're a single dad. You've got kids. Your love life, you getting off or having someone to come in, to step in to alleviate your loneliness is not the priority of your life. Your happiness is not God's priority or should be your priority. Doing the right thing is your priority. And doing the right thing is raising your children and putting them first. How do you think your kids are going to feel when their father, who's all they've got in the whole world, his attention is now being spread or diluted to a strange woman that they have nothing in common with? or may not even want to be involved with. And not only that, now they're living in the same house with strange children that are also receiving benefits that they used to receive, that they have to share, that they never had to share before. You know, you may be happy and that may be fine for you, but what about your kids? No one thinks about that. Have you asked them what they think? So it makes no difference, the advice. We don't get involved with single mothers, whether we're single parents or not. It makes no difference. It doesn't change the fact, in my opinion, for what that's worth. We have a super chat from Mr. John Fessenden. Shout out to you, brother. Welcome. Who writes, buy some gas for your saw. I will do that. We'll be buying some diesel for the tractors. We're doing irrigation right now and irrigation ditches. But thank you for that, brother. I sure do appreciate it. We really do. Thank you for being here and for your generosity. And goodness, we have a $20 super chat from member Mr. Deacon Scale Singer. Shout out to you, brother. New member. Welcome. Great to have you here. Deacon writes this. I've been the type of guy who would be careful of what to say and share with people. Since COVID, I genuinely don't give a damn anymore what people think of me. I do right by my family and friends. All interesting. Absolutely. You know, I couldn't have put that better myself. When I was reading that just now, I could have written that myself. The gloves are off. For me, I used to be probably more than most people concerned about what other people thought. Whenever I had people, if I'd scheduled an event, whether it was a motorcycle ride or we'd opened our house to subscribers, I never had any joy in doing that because I'm so worried that everyone was provided for. I was constantly running around, anxious. Does he have this? I took it as my personal responsibility that everyone was provided for, had a good time, wasn't in need of anything, and I would put my wants and needs and desires always would be secondary to that of other people. It's always the way that I've lived my life, and that's good and bad, but mostly bad. After COVID, I don't know what it was, but something flipped in my mind. Maybe the mask was off with so many of the people that I thought were friends, and we saw the true nature of people and how disappointing that was, that I realized that I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm going to be very candid. I had, that was hard. There was a lot of fallout from that and continues to be fallout from that. You know, I speak very candidly now, whether it be in shorts or on the live stream. I say things that are very controversial. And that has a lot of consequences for me, especially with my family, friends that we've been, they watch and they hear about these things. They hear people talk. And if you take things out of context and don't see the big picture, you can look at this guy and like, oh, this guy's gone off the rails, I don't want to have anything to do with him. And so friendships and relationships have deteriorated. Family, direct family, I am, some I don't have contact with anymore, just directly because of that, because I've been so honest with the way that I feel and just call shots, call things like I see them. I get very personal by sharing personal stories on this platform that come back to bite me. It hurts me in the long run to share what I want to share. To share with what I want to share with you right now might hurt me, but I think it's important to be genuine here. I think that it's important for you guys to understand, for us to talk in this medium, to understand that we're all treading the same grape press here. We all have the same problems, and if you're struggling with this, with friends and family members and loyalty, and having a hard time warming up to friends that you've had in the past because you saw their true colors and you think that you're the bad guy for doing this, you're not. It's God brought this upon this country. He's separating, he's lifting the veil of deceit and fakeness, and he's separating the goats from the sheep. And you are seeing the goats, and you instinctively know, I'm not a goat, and I don't want to be part of that, and even though it's been a 20 or 30 year relationship, I'm cutting it off. I can't have it. I can't subscribe to that. I can't be fake anymore. I can't deal with the BS. Time is short. The consequences for actions are going to be more and more important, especially the choice that you make of what side you're going to be on. Whether you be on the side of God, the Almighty, the Creator, or the side of the adversary, because there are only two sides. And willingly or not, you are choosing that side right now. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Unafraid, unreserved, 100%. I have a friend that this has broke my heart. This happened probably last summer ago. I hope he's watching, because I haven't had the opportunity to say this to his face. I hope that I do. That we used to do some things together. You know, doesn't live too far away from here, and I enjoyed his company very much. I haven't talked to him for a long time, because the last time we spoke, he came into the shop, and one thing that was common is that he's very involved with the community. And this is a good thing, and one thing I admire about him, he's concerned with other people and what's going on, and he tries to help the best he can. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and I might be wrong about this, and if I am, I'd be willing to admit it, I think he gets involved too much in other people's business. I think he needs to take care of his own affairs first, and then he can be in a position when your own house is in order, 100%, then you can be in the other position to really dedicate time to other people's kids and other people's problems. You know, and I'm not implying that he hasn't taken care of his own business. You know, I'm not saying anything like that. Don't put words into my mouth. But about that time, you know, when he came into the shop and we were going to go on a motorcycle ride, and I was very excited about that, and that's what was on my mind. Well, he was bringing a lot of these problems from other people that I didn't even know, and this kept coming up, and the conversation kept going to this. And you know, I'm just now after COVID. To kind of paint the picture, I'm just through with the BS. I'm through with drama and other people's problems and being a people pleaser. I just want to be around real people saying real things. And it just caught me at the wrong moment, and maybe I was overly harsh, but I said to him, I just said, look, I don't care about these people. I don't even know these people. I said, in my opinion, you're too involved in other people's lives. Maybe we should focus on our own thing here. I said, I don't want to talk about these problems in the community that I have no control over from people that I don't know. I want to go dirt biking with my friend. That's all I want to do. I want us to go have a good time and not drag all of this drama up there with us. And he was, you know, he didn't say anything, but I think he was really taken aback by it. And I didn't realize how harsh maybe those words were or what I said at the time. And maybe I spoke out of frustration. I probably did more than I should have. But I needed to say it. It was on my heart. I needed to be honest and truthful about this. And for us to maintain a relationship and have a friendship, this needed to change. This needed to change, and I felt like I needed to say it. Well, we went on to do a ride, and everything was fine. But since then, I don't know that we've really spoke since then. And I think maybe I've hurt his feelings. And maybe I was too harsh on that. And if you're watching, you know who you are. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm dealing with this the best I can as well, and it's hard to be called out of Babylon. It's hard to wake up and realize that everything you believe to be true and what you were told by your parents and such, a lot of that was nonsense and was not good advice whatsoever. And it's hard to extricate yourself from that, and you're going to make some mistakes along the way, and you're going to hurt some people's feelings. But that's just the way that it is. I hope that it can be reconciled. I'd be willing to do whatever Mama, don't bite me. Goodness, you are. I do not trust that cat. Dangerous. Dangerous. My granddad, little side quest here. My granddad grew up in Oklahoma on a self-sufficient homestead. And to make a little extra money, he did trapping. He would trap muskrat and, I don't know, whatever skunk critters that they have in Oklahoma. But he told me one time when I was a boy, he said, you know what the meanest thing I ever got caught in a trap was? I said, no, Granddad, what was it? He goes, a common alley cat. He goes, a common alley cat is about one of the most dangerous animals you could ever be locked into a room with. That's super true. We have a Rate My Projo from Kyle Jeanette. Shout out to you, Kyle. Okay, Rate My Projo. We haven't had one of these for a while. I'm going to do it. On a scale of 1 to 10, with the information that Kyle has provided here, I will give my official rating of the quality of your Projo. 35, no debt, 20K in the bank, gold, silver, pew-pews. He's a farmer, diesel mechanic, a farmer and a diesel mechanic. Now there's a man with skills. North Idaho, which is one of the best places in the country. Shop with many tools, a KLX 300. He's got motos, an 80s 250 diesel. Oh goodness, I mean I'm going to say, my initial thought was, well, he didn't mention a TradCon, so there is going to be a 1.5 deduction for that. But to be honest, I would say that not having a woman is also a 1.5 boost. So, so whether you have a TradCon or you're a bachelor and you're unencumbered, that's both good. So I'm going to go ahead and give Kyle 35, no debt, 20K in the bank. I'm going to give him a solid 9, a 9. You get a 9. Kyle, I'm going to rate your Projo as a solid 9, maybe even a 9.5. Shout out to you, brother. Killing it. Killing it. Winning up there in Idaho. Shout out to you, the Gem State. We have a super chat from our friend Justice who writes, your thoughts about single fathers marriage. Oh, I got that one. I backed up. Goodness here. We're struggle stream. But thank you, Deacon. You know, that what you said about genuinely not giving a damn anymore. It's not that we don't give a damn. I think that that's a poor choice of words, and I don't think you really mean that. I may have even said that myself. It's not that I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn about nonsense. I give a damn about things that matter. Family, true blue friends, the Word of God, and my community. Outside of that, that's not my problem. It's not my problem. I can't do anything about it anyway. Why am I going to encumber my time and my mind with things I have no control over? That's why I reacted so harshly to the bringing in of other people's problems into my shop. I just don't have any interest in it. If there's someone in my community that I hear is struggling or suffering in some way, I will do what I can to alleviate that, but I will do it anonymously. Thank you, Dr. Prepper. Yeah, I missed that. I just got back there. We have a super chat from King's Rule. Shout out to you, King's Rule. What is your thoughts on flare guns? I live in the Mojave Desert in SoCal and wonder if it would be a good idea. Yeah, I carry them. I actually had to purchase, I have a mini flare kit that fits in a compartment, a little like a Pelican style case about the size of this phone, a little bit thicker, that has mini flares in there with a mini pencil flare gun. I had to order it out of Canada. Sadly, no longer made or no longer available in the States. They're illegal. And I carry that on snow bike because I want to know. We've had search and rescues up here where a guy got lost, crawled into under a tree well or into a snow cave, and when search and rescue went up there, they couldn't find him because of the storm and walked right by him and nearly missed him. So having a flare gun is important for a situation like that. So I'm a big fan of it. Plus, you know, those are legal in many states. And if you go on Amazon right now, you can buy a 12 gauge, or used to be able to, I think you, Orion flare gun. This hasn't really got out and they haven't banned them yet. You tell me that that isn't a good defensive weapon in an emergency situation. Would you want to be shot with a 12 gauge flare at 50 feet? You know, it comes with the launcher and everything. Just saying, if you live in a state where you can't have anything or don't trust yourself to have it, something like that can serve dual purposes. Not to mention, it's a really good way for starting fires in an emergency. And I get concerned about potential terrorists and such. If they were to get a hold of a few of those and they're readily available at any marina or anywhere, you could shoot those out from a car window in a day during a red flag warning in an urban interface, and you could cause all manner of havoc. And I worry that these things are going to happen. Hopefully never. But act accordingly, Projo. Flare guns are good. Flare guns are cool. We actually use flare guns. We have a specific model of flare gun for starting prescribed burns wildland firefighting. I've used, the Forest Service has them in the cache. I've actually been around them, and I haven't fired one, but I've stood right next to the guy that did. I know what they are. Mr. Dave Knott, shout out to you, brother, writes, you are 1,000 genuine and insightful, invaluable, bless you. Yeah, for as long as they allow us to be. But these are not popular opinions, beloved. These do not achieve what the spider wants to achieve, and that is the breakdown of society, mainly by destroying families, attacking us at the family level. So hold fast. And we're in the minority. There's only going to be a few of us that understand this. The rest of the people are going to be swept away by the cultural changes, the Marxism, and the global homo. Mostly because of women. You know, women follow this. Who's bringing children to transvestite story hour? Is it men or women? Go look. You know, the good book tells us something, there's a quote in, I think it's in the Proverbs, in the Old Testament. A woman tears down her home, or depends on the translation. A woman destroys or tears down her home with her very own hands. 80% of divorces in the West are filed by women. 80%. A woman tears down her house with her own hands. A woman destroys her life by her own actions. That's what that means. That's advice from the fathers. Do you think there's value in the old books? Do you think there's value in the 66 that God has preserved for us? How long has it been since you've cracked it open? Where are you getting your knowledge? Where are you getting your wisdom? Do you even have a father to give it to you? Do you have a man in your life that can give you the hard truth and not just give you the honey of the word, just the sweet word that doesn't offend anyone? Or do you need a little bit of shock and awe? Do you need to hear the hard truth so that you can make corrections and straighten your life out? I want truth. I need truth. I don't need people justifying my bad actions. Thank you, Dave. Our friend Old Heart is in the chat. Shout out to you, Old Heart, who writes, had a lunch meeting today with Evan Dixon, Jason Barr, and Handy Mike today. Everything will be in the kit through Memorial Day. Great dudes, Projo approved. Well, there we have it, from the middleman himself. If you order the 3 radio kit, and again, I haven't looked, guys, but I'm hoping that you're spamming occasionally the link to the 3 radio Projo kit for me, that you will be made whole. If you order it late, if you didn't make the top 100, you'll still enjoy all the benefits of everyone else through Memorial Day. But once that's over, that's the hard date. It's done after that. We have a super chat from the Gnostic Academy. Shout out to you. Good to see you back. Who writes, just dropping in 3 sevens here to show my respect. Thank you for the good word, Cody, and God bless you and Mrs. W. I appreciate that. I certainly do. Thank you. Having that support and that affirmation that I'm not a lone voice crying in the wilderness gives me encouragement. It gives me the courage of a lion, knowing that you guys have my back. It means everything to me. So, and it's not just about, I'm not just talking about super chats, it's just being here. To see that number, 639 solid men in the comments here supporting what we're doing, it gives me the fizz, gentlemen. It absolutely gives me the fizz, and I appreciate it, and I do not take it for granted. Thank you. Mr. Dr. Prepper, shout out to you, writes, any plans on a once-in-a-week deep dive on a biblical thought or passage? Perhaps you could be an audiobook narrator. Oh, goodness. Have you seen me read, Dr. Prepper? I am now, unlike you, I am not a learned man. I am a digger, as I like to put. My mother used to tell me I was not academic. And my mother, bless her, she was always after me about education. And one thing that she used to tell me was, if you don't do better in school, you're going to be out digging a ditch. That was always the thing. I remember, you'll be digging a ditch. Well, what did I find myself doing at 19? I was out digging a ditch. I was in excavating, literally digging ditches. It was, and not in a piece of equipment. You know, they didn't trust young people on $100,000 piece of equipment. So you would start with a shovel and maybe work your way up to that position. But she was right. She was right. But there's nothing wrong with digging a ditch. I refer to myself, I have of late, as I'm a digger. What that means to me is that's just a real person, a person that's grown up in the trades, that has not grown up in privilege. No. Now I get must be nice. Must be nice. You know, you get that all the time. Well, yeah, I wasn't always this way. I mean, 10 years ago, I didn't have pot to piss in, right? So I've enjoyed some success. That's true. But I also never forget where I came from. I've been homeless before. I've been kicked out of, you know, I've been on the streets. I've been drug addicted. I've experienced all these things. So I never get up on a, really, I mean, I may say things and talk tough, but I never really get up on a high horse thinking myself to be superior. I don't do that. I don't believe it, even though I may project that. I don't believe it because I'm sympathetic to it. When I see a dude a guy sleeping in a cardboard box on the side of the street in Portland, you know, I don't look at them as some sort of inhuman filth. No, do I want them into my house? Do I want to have dinner with a guy like that? Well, of course not. You know, there's problems there. But also, the thing that I repeat in my mind is the scripture, there go I, if not by the grace of God. Had God not pulled me out of Babylon on the path of righteousness, gave me a good tradcon woman to help me in my struggle, I would be there as well on the streets of Portland, a heroin addict or worse. You know, so I'm sympathetic to that. That's why the good book tells us through the story of the talents of the man that was forgiven a debt. You know, and when Jesus asked, if a man is forgiven a small debt and then another man is forgiven a great debt, which one is going to love his master? Which one is going to love the one that forgave him more? The one who was forgiven little or the one forgiven a lot? Well, the man that heard these words of Christ said, well, I would imagine the one that you forgive the more. And he said, yeah, that's right. That's right. So those of us that have been in the dirt, in the mud, who have made bad decisions and got involved with wrong people and came close to wrecking our life, that we're able to come out of that and to get victory over that and to get yourself squared away and be a productive person and father and husband, are of the most, have the greatest ability for compassion and sympathy, because we understand, we can relate. If we have a friend that's struggling with addiction, we have a friend that's struggling with pornography, we have a friend that's struggling with cigarettes, whatever, we can sympathize because we've been there. We know what that's like. And had you not, you know, you always have ivory tower people, well, you just need to stop drinking. You just need to stop watching that pornography. You know, someone that's never struggled with it, never had an issue, never been a concern. You know, those words don't ring very true. They don't carry much weight. I mean, what carries weight is advice from someone who's been there, who's experienced it. That's a person that has compassion. And that's a lot of the times, that's the people that God chooses to do his work. And if you were to judge these people and you look at their past, you're like, who is this person up here on internet preaching the gospel? I knew him when he was in high school. I knew what a whore he was. I knew how many people he led astray and how he got involved with drinking and how dishonest and thieving and lazy he was. And now he's up here preaching the gospel? You got to be kidding me. Well, that's what man sees. What God sees is a man that, yes, he did do all those things. And God, I believe, and this is just my opinion, that he has even greater love and respect for a man or a woman that's able to come out of that with his help and be productive. Because now you can't be on that ivory tower. You've experienced it, you understand it. And you're in a much better position to be sympathetic. And in my opinion, you're much more qualified than the best theologian or the most learned man to get down in the trenches with the real people and discuss the gospel and come up with solutions that will get us reunited with our Heavenly Father. And that's what we got to do. That's what our goal is here, beloved. We're essentially soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. This is not our home. And Christ is our commander, and he's showing us a safe passage through the minefield where we can be reunited with our comrades and with our commander. Goodness, brothers, it's It only makes sense. It only makes sense. Oh, I'm backing up. It's struggle stream. But Dr. Prepper, yes. You know what I need, Dr. Prepper, and this speaks to the group as a whole here, I need an impetus. I need a topic, someone to throw something out there. I need a group of trusted people to come with me, to come to me and like, this is the most common thing being discussed. This is something that we should talk about. Maybe we could together, corporately, we can come to some resolution or some understanding of a very difficult or complex bit of scripture. That's what I need from you. So if you guys want that, get it to me through the middlemen. Have something laid out with some definite questions, a topic, not something too broad that I can like tackle. I can say, oh, that, yeah, let me go in. What I'll do is I'll go into the basement. I'll sequester myself. I don't have a basement, figuratively speaking, and I'll get into the Word prayerfully, and I'll do my due diligence, and I'll come back with you with my findings that we can discuss together. That's what we can do. So yes, but you guys have to participate. I'm not going to hold your hand through it. So bring me some topics, bring me some things that are relevant to this conversation, and I will do that 100%. Mr. Grayson Unger, shout out to you, brother. Thank you for your generosity from that super chat. I really appreciate that. And Mr. Dean Pickett, good to see Dean back. Dean writes, grew up riding a CT110, now have a Honda CT125. Can't wait to graduate to a moto. Yeah, that little 250, that little 250 Honda, little 250 size bike is good. Air-cooled, stick with air-cooled, Kawasaki, Honda. Can't go wrong with that, man. Great little bikes. That little 250F, I got my eyes on one of those. I would love to have one of those around here just as a loaner bike. They're not super expensive, about, well, $4,500, $5,000 for a 250F. I saw one, a 2022 today on Facebook Marketplace that was in mint condition. Guy had bought it for his kid. Kid had no interest in it and wouldn't ride it, and so was selling it. It had only been ridden in the back of a little city yard, and you were saving like $1,000. I was tempted to go buy it, but that 250F, it's like the L, but more dirt-oriented. Still a dual sport, I believe. Look up the Honda 250L. I think that'd be a good bike for a lot of dudes. Is it the L? No, not the L. The F. Excuse me, the L is the one I have. But the L is good too. We have a super chat from Dude Works. Shout out to you, brother, who writes, this man has true words. He only speaks the truth. Truth, only truth. Yeah. You have to speak the truth, gentlemen. The good book tells us that there are a couple things that will not be in the kingdom with God, that will not make it to heaven. And that's the false prophet and the liar. And you can lie not by just bold-faced lies. You can lie through omission. And that is sometimes the more sinister of the lies. Lying through omission is still a lie. Thank you, Dude Works. I appreciate that. The Gnostic Academy, we have an 1111. You know, 11 is my favorite number, and having it twice is just, well, just icing on the cake there. Nothing wrong with enjoying the success you earned. It is love of money, not money itself, that is the issue. A real success is the tradcon and kids anyway, through the backhoe, though the backhoe is pretty nice. Yeah, that's the way I look at it as well. And anyone who knows me knows that as well. All of this stuff doesn't make the money. And I've publicly many times come out and said that I went too far with all of this. I bought too many toys and too many goodies. And that's a direct result of someone who grew up not having anything, a paycheck to paycheck guy, a digger, never went to college, never, just an ordinary dude. To come into money, you can kind of lose your mind. And I wasn't doing it to flex or to show off anything. Just all the things that I dreamed of having that I never could have in the past. Like for me, even 15 years ago, the idea that I'd be able to go and buy a motorcycle for cash and not put it on like payments or finance it or a vehicle or anything, any big purchase like that would have been preposterous. Just absolutely preposterous. How quickly things can change. But now what I've learned from all that and what I know now is that, that's actually makes your life worse. The recipe, seems to me, the recipe for contentment, as much contentment as a man can have in this life, is to have a family is important, not necessary. Being a bachelor and having independence, having established yourself a good career, a good savings, your own land, no debt, living where you want to do, doing the work that you want to do, not answering to anyone, being your own man as much as possible, living in the slave state that we live in, is about as good as we can hope to achieve. It really is. I think that the success, the goal of Projo should be is higher quality but less. It's okay to go drop some money on something that may be extravagant to some people, but if it gives you the fizz and it's high quality and you enjoy it, then all bets, no one else's opinion matters. Yeah. No, the grass is always greener, you know. I mean, when I was on the other side, there were times I was practically homeless or couch surfing. If I were to look to my life now and think back, oh, I would give anything for that. To live in a nice place and have a family and such compared to where I'm at now. You're never going to be content. And now I find myself in that position. And now sometimes, you know, when you're dealing with the chaos and the hectic things of life and all of the complication and the great demands upon you when you're in a position like this, you look back fondly upon those days when you were footloose and fancy free, right? When you were beholden to no one with no responsibilities, and if you took the urge to get up and travel with a backpack across Europe or relocate for a job in a different country, you were completely free to do that. That can look enviable. So it's just the green grass. It doesn't matter where you're at. Every man that you know, no matter what his circumstances, you may look upon him and think, oh, I covet his wife, I covet his car, I covet his house, his boat, his motorcycles. I assure you, he's got problems just as great as yours, probably greater. And that if you knew the extent of it, if you really saw the true life and the true emotions behind the fake mask that we all wear, it was most likely that you would not trade places with any other man. If you knew the truth, not what's being projected. And it's true, you know, Gnostic Academy is obviously a learned and intellectual man here. I can tell from his insights and such. Something that sticks out here is that the love of money, not money itself. Yeah, stupid pastors and ill-informed people will misquote Scripture. And what Gnostic Academy, he's referring to this, is the words of Christ. He says, oh, it's hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. You know, so does that mean, if you were to take that context, it's hard for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God? Why did he say that? Did he say it's impossible? No, he said it's hard. Why is it hard? It's because where is your God? Is what you depend upon for your very existence, for your life, is it the Almighty or is it your bank account? Do you have $250,000? Do you have $500,000? Do you have $10 million in the bank? Where is your real faith? Even if you've got $10 million in the bank and you're sitting in the pew and you say, oh, my faith is in God. Is it really? Or is it in that $10 million? Do you really know, you know, in the back of your mind, if I get into a pinch, you know, I'll get myself out. That is essentially FU money, to have that type of money. I will do this. I will save myself. I will hire a lawyer. I will get the best counsel. I will figure out because I have the resources. You know, because the poor man can't do that. When he gets himself in a pickle, in a bad situation, where does he look for his refuge? He has no other place to look other than the Almighty. So when God says how hard is it for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God? It's true for many people. But do you know what he says? He says this also. He says, it would be easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. Now, what is the eye of a needle? And what was the eye of the needle for the Oriental man in those days? Was it the sewing needle that we're talking about? Because we know what a camel is, and we know what an eye of a needle is. It's teeny tiny, right? You put a piece of thread through it. Yes, it would be difficult to get a camel through the eye of a needle. I've heard people that don't like to take the Bible literal and have trouble with these sort of things that will say, well, to the Eastern man back in the day, the eye of the needle would have been the sheep gate. You know, they would have called that you're threading the sheep through the, you know, I never have found any history that would back that up. There's a lot of crazy ideas that come up from people that try to justify their actions. God said it would be, Christ said, it would be easier for a rich man to enter, for a camel to enter through. I'm repeating myself. Do you know what he says? You know what the next verse is? Who can say it? What's the next verse after making this proclamation? He says, but all things are possible with God, right? All things are possible with God. Wiggle words, maybe, wiggle words, but the point is, and just like Gnostic Academy said, is that it's the love of money is what destroys a man, not having money. Look at the patriarchs. You know, the perfect example, I will completely dismiss or blow out of the water this idea that a person with money has not the ability to be sympathetic or to enter into the kingdom. Do you know the story of Job? This is one of the oldest books in the Old Testament. We know the story of Job. Job was one of the richest men of the time, had flocks and herds, had tremendous family, and family was wealth in those days. Children were wealth in those days. And he was greatly prospered. Well, a conversation came up. The adversary, the devil, came to God and said, you see this man Job, the one who loves you and is devout and faithful to you? I tell you the truth. If you were to take away all that he has, all that stuff you've given him, he would curse you to your face. You don't have a faithful servant there. You have a man serving you because you have given him all this stuff. And God, and I'm going to paraphrase here, I don't mean to be irreverent. I don't know it verse by verse. I know the essence of it. God replies, oh, is that right? I don't think you're right. I think you're wrong. I'll tell you what. I will give you a temporary authority to remove those things from him. Take all that he has away, but you may not kill him. You may not kill him. You have to keep him alive. Take those things away, and I'm willing to bet that you're wrong. I'm willing to bet that he'll remain faithful to me. The devil said, you're on. I'll take it. God said, go do your worst. He lifted his hand of protection off of that man, and the devil afflicted him with all manner of problems. Accidents came up where Job's children were killed, his daughters and his sons. His great fortune, his flocks and herds and crops in great abundance, one by one stripped away from him. Storms, accidents, problems, walls falling down, all manner of calamity happens to Job until he gets to the point where he has nothing left and he's covered with painful and hateful sores. And the only relief that he can get is to sit in these filthy rags on the side of a ditch somewhere and scrape the wounds with a broken shard of pottery to get some relief from the terrible itching and burden that these boils and sores that he's completely covering with. The devil has done everything he can do to destroy this man, but he can't kill him. God's protection is still upon him. It even got so bad that Job's wife finally came to him and said, do you see, can you not look around you and see, you foolish man, that your God has forsaken you? Why don't you curse him and die? Even Job's own wife. And we have to assume that Job, being a man after God's own heart, a very beloved man, had chosen a wife properly. We have to assume that. But even Job's wife turned on him, even his friends. But one thing Job never did is he never lost faith. Though he kill me, I will serve him. That was the tack that Job took. To fast forward, when this was all done and over, when this whole experiment between the adversary, the accusation between the adversary and God was played out, God restored Job. Did he restore him back to his current wealth? Manyfold more. Job had children again, sons and daughters. His wealth, his cattle, his lands, his homes, his buildings, all were returned to him, but even on a much greater number. So when God showed his favor upon Job, he prospered him greatly financially. Why? Because Job was able to handle it. Job proved to God that he did not serve him because of all the nice things that he had given him. Job served God because he loved him. And even when all of that was taken away, Job remained faithful. And so that proved to God of what his motivation was. And Job was prospered after that. Job was a mature man. Job was able to handle wealth and to do with it what he wanted without it destroying him or corrupting him. Not everybody can do that. Abraham was one of God's favorite people. Built an entire nation upon Abraham, the father of 3 religions. God spoke to Abraham as a man speaks to his friend, intimate. Abraham was one of the wealthiest men of the day. Abraham was so wealthy, he was able to field a personal and private army with men armed and trained for combat from his own household. That's how wealthy he was. He was able to handle it. He didn't serve God because of money. So, a very interesting, or a very insightful comment from the Gnostic. It's not the love of money that corrupts, or it's not money that corrupts, it's the love of it. Not a 22 man super chat. Shout out to you. Thank you, brother. Sure do appreciate that. And Question Tree writes, we have a super chat from Question Tree. Question Tree writes this: went from nearly being homeless to getting an offer from a dream job and having all my bills paid in just under a couple of weeks. It can happen quickly, gentlemen. It can happen very quickly. Your circumstances can change very quickly, just like it did for Question Tree here. Thank you for all the live streams. They are what keep me upright. Yeah, we do this together. It keeps me upright as well. Having this accountability. I have very little accountability in my life. Having this accountability helps me as well to be here every day at 12:30. And every morning, when I'm, especially right before the live stream, I start thinking, oh, I'm too busy for the live stream. Oh, I've got so much going on. I got to get out of the tractor, out of the field, come over here and do the live stream. Even though I don't want to do it, I do it. Thank you, brother. And Grayson Unger, shout out to you. We have a super chat. Grayson writes, my wife and I are about to build a house on a couple acres in the Seattle area. Any must-haves for the new build? Make sure that you have a sanctuary for yourself, a good shop. Make sure that the family understands that men are people too, and they're not to be relegated to some man cave somewhere. So when you're making the design, less is more. Think about simplicity. Think about high quality. It would be better to have a simple, high quality home than a great big McMansion. And also be thinking about alternatives. If you have the ability to build, then you're in a great position, just like we are right now. Maybe 2 ways of heating your home. Maybe having a cook stove, a place or provisions for a cook stove in the future. Provisions for a wood stove, even if you don't use it. Just be thinking about those things. Put money into insulation. So if in a time of great distress where you're eating out of your pantry, you're only able to heat your home because of firewood and such that it can function in that way. So look forward to really simplifying things. Only build what matters. Only build what you need. Don't build to show off or to posture. Build to survive and build quality. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Mr. Rudy Santa Maria. Shout out to you, Rudy. Rudy writes, what was the hardest thing you've ever had to let go of? The hardest things seem to be the ones that let go of me, that I've had to let go of. Man, I've never thought about that question before. Usually, I trust my initial instinct, what comes into my mind. The hardest thing to let go of. I think maybe the hardest thing to let go of is coming to the realization that God is not like an angry schoolmaster that sits on high, aloof, waiting to hurt, harm, or punish people that disobey him. Because that's the religion that I was raised with. God was used as a hammer to strike you down or to control you if people, a group of people didn't like what you were doing, saying, or behaving. Coming to the realization, coming out of that and hating God for being a tyrannical beast, a monster, coming out of that and coming to the realization, letting go of that, coming to the realization that that's not his character at all, and it's actually just the opposite of that. It's probably been one of the hardest things to let go for me. And in my weaker moments, you know, it's easy to default back to that. We have a super chat from Roman Carlisle. Shout out to you, Roman. Roman writes, what watch are you rocking these days? None. I rotate between 3 or 4 watches. I wear a Seiko tuna, the tuna can. On a NATO, I wear a Marathon SAR, Canadian automatic. I wear a Hamilton Field khaki, manual wind. I wear a Garmin Phoenix Sapphire GPS quite often. And I wear a Rolex Explorer stainless automatic. I rotate between those watches. That's it. Yep. What's my favorite? Well, the Rolex is my favorite, of course. Mr. Shane, we have a $20 super chat from you. Shout out to you. Thank you, brother. That's very generous of you. Shane writes this, rate my Projo. I can do that. This is probably my favorite thing to do on the live stream, is to rate my Projo. This is when I'm given a little bit of information of your background, and I give you a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 of how you rate, 10 being the perfect Projo. 2 years of firewood. Oh, that's good. I'm going to give 3 points for that. 2 years of firewood, it's cut and stacked. Workshop, 2 min tools. I hear you. 5 chainsaws. That's about where I'm at. Farmer, 25 years. Engineer. Oh, this is getting up there. We're almost at 9 now. Multi-income, but we'll work till I die. Married 20 years, same as me. West coast of Ireland. You know what they say about the Irish? If it had not been for alcohol, the Irish would rule the world. I have no doubt. Savage warriors. Irish and the English, savagery. They may be somewhat domesticated now, but let an Irishman or an Englishman off the leash, and he will tyrannize. Goodness. No kids. Other story, Christian faith is lacking. You know, we all could do better. We all could do better. No one's casting stones. No one's judging right here. This is the human condition, man. It's difficult. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. The Christian walk is difficult. It's not for wussies. Christianity, the true Christianity, the true faith, is a fighting man's religion. It doesn't tolerate any nonsense. This soft soap that you've been sold from these neutered pastors, teaching this hippie Jesus, meek and mild, love and kindness, and never step on anyone's toes, is not the faith of not the Christian faith. And it's high time, gentlemen, it's high time we get back to the hard word and the hard law of God. I'm ready. Who's ready to get back to the hard word and the hard law of God, where when a man says something, he means it and backs it up with consequences? Who is ready? Let me know, 7s in the chat, if you'd like to step into that world. I know I would. I'm going to rate your Projo. Man, I've got to give you extra points that you're doing all of this in Europe, which it's like what we have to do with your hand tied behind your back with all of the burdensome regulation and nonsense you have to deal with. So for that very reason, I'm going to give you a 9.5. Shout out to the Irishman. I'm glad to see that. Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your generosity, and well done. Couldn't be more proud of you. That's got to be hard to do over there in the old country. Goodness, we have a super chat from Crazy Cajun. Good to see the Cajun back. Always warms my heart. Who writes Matthew 19, 24 through 20, 19 verse 24 through 26. We're getting some word here. Verses related to the camel going through the eye of a needle than a rich man going to heaven. Yeah, he's what we talked about. Yeah, that's from the book of Matthew. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The first 4 books of the New Testament. The 4 testimonies, personal testimonies of the life of Christ. Why are there 4 gospels? Doesn't it seem somewhat redundant? Why are there 4 different men telling the story of Jesus' life? Well, there's a term called woodshedding. Have you ever heard the term woodshedding? Law enforcement, cops. They know if they're interviewing people and they try to get the facts, if everyone has the exact same story, you can guarantee that they've been woodshedded, meaning they've all got together in a woodshed somewhere and got their story straight, and they're not getting the true story. When you have people reciting things that they saw, experiences that they had, even though it may be the same as their neighbor, they can vary somewhat. They will vary. They need to vary. If they don't vary, then it's not truthful. So what God has provided is 4 different examples from 4 different men detailing the ministry of Christ to get that rich perspective. The Dude Blog. Shout out to you, brother and member. The Dude Blog writes this. I'm baptizing our son this summer in a creek on the ranch. What's some profound advice I can give him? It doesn't make any difference, any profound advice that you give him or any anecdotes or any wise words that you give him. It's meaningless. It's just noise that's coming out of your mouth. What you can do is you can live a proper life. You can lead by example by showing him the 18 or 20 years that you have him in your home, that he's in your presence. You can show him by example what a man looks like, how a man treats his mother, how a man treats his children, how a man provides for, steps up and protects and takes care of and takes on the responsibility, the house band, the band of protection, the husband, the house band, the band of protection around a home, how he looks after that God has entrusted to him. That's what you're teaching him. Preach a sermon every single day and speak only if you absolutely must. I'll close with this. My dad smoked cigarettes all the time I grew up. Smoked all the way up until Jack was little, maybe 3 or 4. And the only reason he quit smoking was because his grandson, his one and only grandson, who he loved, asked him, "New granddad, I want you to stop smoking. I don't want you to die." And my dad quit. Right there. Just cold turkey quit after a lifetime of smoking from the time he was probably 16 or 18. My old man, growing up, constantly gave me advice, don't smoke. Don't smoke, laid out all the reasons. It's a terrible habit. It's not good for your health. It's expensive, yada, 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 right? The whole time. Don't smoke, son. It's an expensive, dirty habit. It's not good for your health. Your wife will hate it. How helpful was that advice to me? It was meaningless. Worse than meaningless. What did I do as soon as I could? I started smoking because my dad smoked, right? That lesson, all those lessons, they meant nothing. They were nothing more than just noise coming out of a hole. What did impact me was his honesty, was his compassion and kindness, and how many people he helped, and how he was always siding with the underdog, how he always provided for his family, how kind and gentle and loving he was, how thoughtful he was, how he cared about his children. He didn't lecture me about these things. He did them, and I watched him do them. And that's how I learned. Had nothing to do with anything that he said. Had everything to do with how he acted. And that's the advice that I would give you. That's the only thing that matters. Living in Chico, California asks, this is a good question because it's moto and I love all things moto. Flex bars or Mako 360? Mako 360, 1000%. I've got both. Flex bars, when I rode flex bars for many years, 5 years I probably have on my flex bars. I'll get them. Indulge me here. They're not too far away. I don't have my glasses, I can't see. Oh goodness. You know, I've looked at these flex bars for a month and now the moment I want them, I can't find them. Here they are. Finally, people are waking up to the damage that can be caused over a lifetime of abuse from impacts and vibrations, i.e. what comes through the handlebars has an effect on your body, all that jarring. So if you can isolate the vibration from the engine, i.e. carpal tunnel syndrome, if you can micro impacts and such on your joints, arthritis, etc., then a man should do it. So if you can invest, if you're really invested into a sport, that you spend a lot of time doing these sorts of activities, you're a fool not to do everything you can to protect yourself when the technology is out there and available. And young guys, they don't get this. You only come to this realization when you're older. 2 reasons why: wisdom and resources. You can barely get a dirt bike when you're 20. You're not going to go buy $400 bars, right? So I get it. I get it. So when I was 50, I started hurting and I got these. So what these do is they isolate from all that vibration with these elastometers. These actually flex on the impact, push and pull. But they're only 2 axes. They're just up and down. The Mako 360, which is what I'm currently running on Candy right here, is a better upgrade. Better dampening, because it dampens all directions, 360 degrees, and the weight reduction is massive. These are tremendously heavy. There's a lot going on. I mean, these are multiple pounds, and when you start putting weight up high, it's horrible on a dirt bike. You keep your weight low. That's why we stand on them. You don't sit on a dirt bike going around a fast corner. Your center of gravity is up high. There's no pressure down on the tires. That's why you stand. It seems counterintuitive. It's hard to learn at first, but you realize very quickly, if you want maximum traction and control of a machine, you stand on the pegs, because all of my weight, you know, my 225, 230 pounds all geared out, is now pressing where? On the top of the seat up high? No, it's pressing on the pegs, which are where? At the very bottom, low. So all my weight is being transferred down to the very bottom of the machine, pushing, driving the tires into whatever. It's the way to do it. That's the way it's done. Putting all that extra weight up high, up where handlebars go, horrible. These are heavy. And they're made worse because a lot of dudes, and if you're smart, you'll do this, or I thought, is I filled these with brass. If you look in there, this is solid brass. Solid brass all the way in here. Why? Well, mass. Vibration is frequencies are coming through this metal, and as soon as it hits anything that escapes these rubber isolators, and there's a lot that does escape the rubber isolators, because look at all this metal. We have metal-to-metal contact here, 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 all the way through. It's only isolated in a small spot. When it hits what vibration gets through these hits that great mass of the solid brass, and it's got it wears itself out, basically cancels itself out, because it can't deal with all of that mass. And with the rubber grips and then the gloves and everything, your end is actually quite nice and free of shock and vibration. But the weight makes it a no-go. It's horrible, having all that weight up high. So I did not realize how terrible those flex bars were, or that weight. Not that there were anything wrong with them. They lasted and they were good. But when I got rid of that weight and put the Mako 360 on, and to a smaller isolated, now everything is isolated. There is no metal-to-metal contact anymore with the Mako 360. It's a superior design, superior product. You get rid of all that weight. So you get extra benefits that are beyond what you get from the flex bar, from vibration dampening, and the more important thing to me, you no longer get that extra weight. To be honest with you, with my experience that I have now from someone that's ridden a lot and rides a lot. I don't think I would need the flex bars or the 360 anymore because I've changed the way that I ride. I used to hold on to the bars and steer the bike. Hold on tight, the death grip. My arms are always pumping out and all that. I don't ride that way anymore. My hands, my grip on the bars is very, very light. I hold the bike with my body, with my legs. I develop a strong core. I completely control the bike and steer the bike now with my body, and my hands are just loose. My hands are there for nothing more than controlling the levers. I'm not steering, I'm not turning. In a scare, of course, you'll grab them, but when your head's about you and your wit's about you, you are steering and you're controlling the whole bike with your body. And the hands are just there to deal with the throttles and the controls. That's all they're for. They're not there to be steering. They actually get in the way. You crash yourself. When you see something get scared and you try to take control of that machine that wants to go forward, that wants to roll and track, the reason why you often crash is when you take what the bike wants to do naturally and you put an input in with the handlebars and then you crash yourself. That's what happens. So my hands are so loose on the bars now, and I practice this all the time. Like when I go out in the evening rides, that's my gym. That's my physical workout. I ride hard and aggressive, and I try to develop these skills, and I try to develop that core strength. So by the end of the season, I'm in really good condition, and I get a lot better at this, and I have a lot better control over the bike. My grip is so loose on the bars now that even if vibration did come from there, it wouldn't really affect me, nothing like it used to when I had a death grip on there before. I'm so light. I even practice a lot riding with one hand. What I do is when I'm riding by myself, when I'm training, I'm running the throttle like this with one finger. That's the minimum amount I can get on, and I circle my hand around the grip. Sometimes I balance my finger on the clutch perch, and I don't touch it at all. Now I'm there so I can grab it in an emergency if I hit something or the bars try to get jerked out of my hand, but I'm not counting on that for my steering, my riding ability. That does a couple things. Keeps me loose, keeps me better control over the bike, and that also isolates me from the vibration. It's really no longer an issue. So a lot of when I was on the hunt to deal with that vibration and impact by these methods, a lot of that has been made not to be a problem, I guess, because of what I'm talking about, if that makes sense to you. If you know, I guess. Yep, I'm seeing a lot of sevens. There. Shout out to the Dude blog. I appreciate that. We have a member chat from WBLRIE and double Loctite member. Shout out to you, brother, who writes, "My dad was the same way, but with chewing tobacco. I saw how hard it was for him and have never smoked nor chewed because of it." Yeah, that's usually the case. That's common. The Battle Chemist, we have a super chat, writes, "Scored a small wool throw with tassels at Goodwill last week for $5. No tags, not sure if Pendleton, but has the right pattern for it. Get out there and hunt those secondhand stores." The Sweet Loaf ran off with mine. Those little 4x6 Pendleton throws, those little blankets with the fringe on them, that's one of the pleasures of life. I have 2 of them. Mrs. W has got me one for Christmas the last 2 years. I use it almost every single day. It's the perfect size. Keep it in your truck. If you have little kids, just to have a wool blanket to spread out, there's nothing better in life than a Pendleton blanket. Man, it is one of the true pleasures of life. And if you got one for $10, well, shout out to you, brother. That's awesome. Send me a picture of it and I can tell you if it's a Pendleton or not. Pacific Northwest man can pick up on Pendleton real quick. Those of us who grew up shopping in the thrift stores, we're like a pig with truffles, man. We find those things. We have a super chat from Back Creek Homestead. Shout out to you, brother. $20 super chat. Man, thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's very generous of you, brother. Rate my Projo. 8th grade education, not too far removed from me. I didn't get much out of high school, if you haven't gathered. Follow Christ. 6 years of framing houses. That's a good one. Good skill to have. framing experience, TradCon woman, 11 years, 3 kids, chicken, sawmill. You know, sawmill is a whole point on its own. 2 years of firewood, 4 acres, joining national forest, trucker, only debt is house payment. Man, Back Creek Homestead is absolutely winning in life. And a TradCon. Man, I'm going to have to say, and all that with an 8th grade education and follows the Lord, 9.5 to you, sir. 9.5. Don't let the fact that multiple Projo have gotten a 9.5 rating today, don't let that give you the impression that I'm watering down the criteria. This is a testimony of the high quality of Projo that we have here in our presence. It's just natural. It's like the dream team right here. The dream team in the comments. We have a new member with what may be, next to Overton Windex, maybe one of the greatest YouTube names of all time. Professional home wanter. Shout out to you, brother. Yeah, well, you got to have something to work towards. You got to have something to work towards. All right, is that it? That's it, gentlemen. I got to wrap it up. It's getting late. This is going too long. I sure do appreciate you guys hanging out. The last couple live streams have been a little bit impromptu. No production. Just, I got my cell phone here. I got my old phone here reading the comments. It's not pretty. It's a bit of a struggle, but it's better. It's more authentic, and I'm actually enjoying this. It's easier for me. I can come in and set it up very easily. We can sit down, hang out for an hour or two and do this. I'm actually enjoying it, not dreading it. The setup and trying to do a high production deal that I thought we were going down, I should have listened to Overton. He told me from the get-go, we don't care about all your high production. We just want to have a good stream. It doesn't matter. Just go Owen Benjamin style, open a laptop, turn on a phone. It's good enough. It's better. It's better that way. It'll be better that way. Just do it. I should have listened to him. I didn't. And he was right. So, mea culpa, Overton. You were right. One of these days, I'll stop questioning your good counsel and just fall in line. But these are better. These are better. I enjoy them more, for sure. Thank you, beloved. Please keep us in your prayers. May God bless you and your families. We pray for you constantly. Sabbath is coming up. Get your family, get your affairs in order, ready tomorrow. What we try to do is try not to work on the Sabbath. Try to set that aside for your family, for your own personal enjoyment, for connecting with your God. And if you can get a few things done ahead of time on Friday to give yourself a little bit more rest and reprieve on Sabbath, it's just icing on the cake. So get ready for that. That'll be here tomorrow. It's assuming today's Thursday. Is it Thursday? I never know what day it is. Goodness. It is Thursday. My days kind of work like this. There are the normal days, and then there's the day, Friday, the day that my manservant Jariah is not here, which is always harder for me. So, having a personal assistant, I would recommend it. I would recommend it 100%. Shout out to Jariah. He is a great blessing to our family, and indispensable around here. So I don't mean any disrespect. A manservant is not a derogatory term. If you were to look it up, a manservant is simply a description of someone that works as an assistant for another man, an employee, a personal assistant, as they call them today. It's not meant to be derogatory. It's just meant to rile people up. And it's very easy to rile people up these days. You don't have to go too far or out of your way to make that happen. Thank you, beloved. We'll see you on tomorrow's stream.